Welcome to the Attic ManaDad here. It's the channel where we explore what's fun in Magic. And what is fun in Magic? It's Tarkir Dragonstorm, the last in-universe Magic set for a while. We're going to enjoy it. We've got my Barbarian helmet on here. We're going to talk about the archetypes today. And let's get rid of me. We're going to talk about the release date, which is actually today as I record this. I've been a little bit slow in getting this out, but I did want to get something out. It's a little bit less than my usual, but unfortunately it's a lot more in some cases. Talk about money cards, mana bases and fixing, official archetypes, hidden archetypes, and build-arounds. So some of the fun decks that you can build in this set. Okay. Paper pre-release starts April 4th, goes through April 10th. MTGO and Arena, I'm assuming MTGO. Arena is definitely April 8th, and I believe MTGO is following there. And paper release officially April 11th for this set. In a play booster, pretty standard now, 14 cards and an art card or non-foil token. 6 to 7 commons. Every 1.6% of the time, you're going to get a special guest. 3 commons, 1 card of any rarity, including booster fun. Ooh. 1 rare or mythic rare slot. There's a foil slot. Could be any rarity. And there's a land slot. And in this set, in this case, foil land in 20% of the packs, and a Dragon's Presence basic land in 4.3% of packs. So look out for those Dragon's Presence lands. If you're drafting and you want to know the money cards, or if you just want to know if you opened a money card at your pre-release, these are the big money cards that are available in the play boosters. Ugin, Eye of Storms, Mox Jasper, Elspeth, Storm Slayer, and Draco Genesis. And these are pre-release prices. They'll go down, of course, but just so you know. In terms of the mana bases, boy, is this set this set has the mana fixing. Let me tell you. First of all, uncommon cycle here with the tri-lands. They're back in the original Tarkir. And then we have the gain lands, and I highlighted the enemy gain lands because the way this set is built is it's got the 3-color wedges, which is built around the enemy colors. So that these gain lands are not all created equal. You do, in fact, most likely, until you know what you're splashing, you're going to focus on an enemy pair. So you're going to be, black, white, blue, red, black, green, red, white, or green, blue. And that lets you go into 2 of the 5 wedges. Okay, so because there's like there's 5 3-color decks. I hope this is, we'll kind of explain this as we go, but I hope this is making sense. Any given 2-color pair, if it's an enemy color pair, it can fit into 2 of those 5 3-color decks. You following? We'll talk more about it. And then you splash out a color on either side. If you look at the color wheel on the back of a Magic card, you can splash out a color on either side to get the super high-powered 3-color faction cards. And if you want, here's the factions. This is maybe helpful. There's a set of rare lands, not helpful for splashing, but they enter tapped unless you control, like, for example, Mistrise Village, a mountain or a forest. Then they have a special ability. Belkoven Encampment, Swamp or Mountain, Arashan City, Forest or Plain, Quarry Mountain Monastery, Plains or Island, Kishla Village, Island or Swamp. Okay? And this gives you a little bit of a hint of what we're going to talk about, the 3-color archetypes. It gives you a little hint of what they're doing, especially with Kishla Village. The Surveil 2, you know that there's going to be graveyard stuff centered around green, and with black, the Ration City, exile a creature card from your graveyard, create a 1/1 white spirit creature token. There's some like go wide tokeny stuff. And with Dalkovan Encampment. We'll talk about that. But I just want you to understand the overall, like, how are we building these decks? And then we'll talk about the decks we're building. Mana bases, we've got Evolving Wilds is also back. In case that wasn't enough fixing, there is a rare land that helps you cast dragons of any color. Mox Jasper can make any color as long as you control a dragon. Embermouth Sentinel lets you search up a basic land card and put it on top of your library, unless you control the dragon, in which case it goes right into play. Dragonstorm Globe makes a mana of any color. You have a cycle of these monument cards for each faction that's going to let you search up one of the three basics for each faction. And then once you've got it out there, you can sacrifice it to get some value out of it. And there's still more fixing. So as usual, green gives you the best fixing. At rare, you've got Herd Heirloom, which is a tap to add 1 mana of any color, but it has to be for a creature spell. And Nature's Rhythm, search your library for a creature card with mana value X or less, put it on the battlefield, and then shuffle. I'm considering that fixing because you can, if you're splashing a creature, you can just search it up with Nature's Rhythm. Dragonbrood's Relic, you have to tap an untapped creature you control, but you do get mana of any color, and then it has a 5-color payoff, which we'll talk about in the greedy 5-color deck skeleton. Encroaching Dragonstorm, similar to Nature's Rhythm, it's going to let you... similar to fixing, search up basic lands, put them on the battlefield tapped. Roamer's Routine, search up basic lands, put them on the battlefield tapped. Segu Wildling, search up basic land, and put it into your hand. Dracogenesis, that will let you cast dragon spells without paying their mana cost, so you don't have to care. Iridescent Tiger, if you're in red, but you want to splash a whatever dragon that's 5 mana or less, do it. You can do it with your Tiger, and you can get a double spell. Breaching Dragonstorm, this is what I was thinking of. When this enters, you exile cards from the top of your library until you exile a non-land card, and you can cast it without paying its mana cost if that spell's mana value is 8 or less. So no 9 mana spells, please. If you don't, put that card in your hand, and when a dragon you control enters, it goes back to your hand. Narset's Rebuke also lets you splash the Jeskai colors, so for 5 mana, and you're going to get a 3 mana rebate with a blue, a red, and a white, which might let you do some things, as we'll see. And more stuff in mana bases. Red also has some treasures with Meticulous Artisan, which comes in and makes a treasure token. At rare, Sarkhan lets you make a treasure as long as you behold a dragon. If you're in Sultai, less fixy because you've already got the 3 colors to cast it, but there's the Keru Goldkeeper at uncommon. And whenever one or more cards leave your graveyard, you're going to make a treasure token. There's a cycle of Devotees, 1 for each color and 1 for each faction. Jeskai Devotee, Sultai Devotee, Mardu Devotee, Abzan Devotee, and Temur Devotee. And those just let you filter your colors. So again, very easy, I think, to splash, and maybe too easy to play 5 color, as we're going to talk about. All right. So here is Wizards' official graphic for the archetypes. In terms of the 3 colors, we've got Abzan Endure. Abzan means white, black, green, if you're not familiar with the terminology. In fact, people just use that even if it's not a Tarkir set. Outsize your opponent with +1/+1 counters or outflank them with spirit tokens. Endure is a mechanic that's like endure some number, and you can either use that to put +1/+1 counters on the creature that's enduring, or you can make a spirit token that's equal to that. So if it's Endure 2, it's a 2/2 spirit. If it's Endure 3, it's a 3/3 spirit. Okay, so different sizes of spirit tokens. Jeskai Flurry, which sounds like a delicious frozen treat, but it is in fact casting 2 or more spells in a single turn to overwhelm your opponent. So double spelling. Jeskai meaning blue, red, and white. Sultai is black, green, blue. Always been a graveyard sort of centered thing. This is going to use the power of your graveyard to make your creatures stronger. Okay. I mean, it's graveyard shenanigans, self-mill. We'll get into that. Mardu is red, white, black. It's Mobilize, which is making a bunch of 1/1s that are attacking, and then they sacrifice themselves at the end of the turn unless you sacrifice them for value sooner. So that is Mobilize. And then Temur is green, blue, red. Harmonize, which is casting spells using your biggest creatures. It kind of feels like Convoke, but it's not. It's like Flashback meets Convoke a little bit. You can say it's Harmonize for 4 and a green. You can tap a creature with 4 power to reduce the cost of the Harmonize, and then you can play it from your graveyard for just 1 green and tapping that 4 power creature. But officially, there's also these 2-color archetypes, and this is really when you're drafting what you're gonna start out in one of these lanes most likely, and then you're gonna move to one side or the other, or maybe you're just gonna include, the 2 factions on either side. So black and white centers around sacrifice your extra creatures, such as temporary creatures from Mobilize, to get extra use out of those creatures. Yeah, we know. Blue red is double spell. Use Harmonize, so you can use Harmonize to double spell, or you can just cast cheap spells, a couple cheap spells in a turn. Stuff that draws. Black and green centered around counters, so not use counters of any kind. There are some payoffs for having different counters. Red-white is go wide tokens. Blitz your opponents with sheer numbers. Use Mobilize tokens and Flurry rewards to build impressive battlefields. I'm not sure about the Flurry rewards thing. We'll go into that. And green-blue leaves the graveyard. This is paying you off for cards leaving your graveyard, which is, I think, probably the most interesting archetype they've got in this set to me. They haven't really done leaves the graveyard that I can recall. There certainly have been individual payoffs in other sets, but to build a whole archetype around it. Well, let's see. Let's start with the 2-color archetypes to build up to the 3. Let's say you're starting in black-white. What might put you into that? Well, we have a Siege enchantment. As it enters, you choose Abzan or Mardu, so that's going to help you understand which of the 2 directions to go. Abzan being adding green, Mardu being adding red. And if you choose Abzan at the beginning of your end step, you put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. If you choose Mardu at the beginning of your end step, if a creature died under your control this turn, each opponent sacrifices a creature of their choice. And because sacrifice is a theme here, Hardened Tactician is a 2/4 sacrifice outlet, but you can only sacrifice tokens, but if you do, you get to draw a card, so that's pretty good. And because we're mobilizing, we're going to have lots of extra tokens that are going to go away anyway, so that seems, and that's not gated. You could do that more than once a turn, so that one seems pretty strong to me. We got Marshal of the Lost, 3/3 Death Touch. Whenever you attack, target creature gets +X/+X until end of turn, where X is the number of attacking creatures. So that's more of a go wide sort of thing. Go wide and go tall. Excuse me as I wet my whistle here. And then every 2-color pair has a dragon with an omen. I know it looks like adventure. It is not adventure. Omens get played and then they shuffle back into your library. So target creature gets +2/+2 and gains lifelink, and hexproof is the omen on this one. That's 1 and a white. Or after you have played the omen enough times, you might want to just have a 5-mana 4/4 dragon with ward, pay 2 life. And when it enters, you remove all counters from up to 1 target creature, which can really hurt those green-black counter decks. In terms of the individual color cards in the black-white sacrifice archetype, Anafenza, this is going to be a strong rare. I'm predicting it fits into a lot of decks. It's a 2/2 first strike flash, and whenever another non-token creature you control dies, Anafenza endures 2, which makes it, I think, almost always in the sacrifice deck, you're just going to make a 2/2 white spirit, and you're going to be sacrificing creatures and making lots of 2/2 white spirits. So Anafenza is going to be something your opponent's going to have to deal with. I mean, if you do start building it up with counters, it's also just a giant first striker, which is hard for opponent to deal with. We've got Delkovan Pack Beasts, which is a 3-mana 0/4. vigilance, but it does have mobilize 3. So when it's attacking, it's making 3/1/1s, which is quite a lot. So there's a lot to work with the pack beasts, and because it's 0/4, it would hopefully survive. Because it's vigilance, it can also block. So will be interesting to see how that plays out in the format. 3 power, 3 toughness seems to be a breaking point in terms, at least in terms of removal, according to the analysis by Sierkiewicz. Follow Sierkiewicz on Blue Sky, and follow me as well. So that's something to look out with when you see these creatures with 4 toughness. That could be a good indication that that creature is a little more resistant to removal. We got a 1-mana 2/1 Descendant of Storms. Whenever this creature attacks, you may pay 1 and a white. If you do, it endures 1. So that can be early token maker when you've got a clear attack. Otherwise, it can attack as a 3/2 and then as a 4/3 and kind of run away with things. Again, will be interesting to see how that plays out. I have a feeling it's going to get planked by a lot of stuff, but maybe not. Duty Beyond Death is a sacrifice outlet, which allows you to give creatures you control indestructible and put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. So for 2 mana, that's a pretty good deal, especially considering we're going to have a lot of these expendable mobilize tokens running around. 2 mana slot, Furious Forebear for a 3/1. Again, another good aggro card here. And you do have to pay 1 and a white whenever a creature you control dies while this card is in your graveyard. But if you do, it can come back from your graveyard to your hand. So also a good thing to sacrifice because you can just bring it back. Avenger of the Fallen is a 2/4 Death Touch with Mobilize X, where X is the number of creature cards in your graveyard. Yeah, we know 2/4 Death Touch for 3 is pretty solid in Standard, so I'm guessing it will be solid in this limited format. Salt Road Skirmish. I mean, every deck will probably be happy to run 4 mana, unrestricted removal. It makes 2 1/1s. They gain haste, and you have to sacrifice them. So it's essentially mobilize on a spell. This deck can take the most advantage of this removal, but I think you will have to fight for this one with other people. Venerated Storm Singer. It's a 3/3 mobilize 1. Whenever this creature or another creature you control dies, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. So the kind of aristocrats effect we saw in the last set. The 4 mana sits out. Unfortunately, the body is 3/3 and not 3/4. But I'm not super high on Venerated Stormsinger, but maybe the format allows for it. We'll see. We got a 1/3 Nightblade Brigade for 3 mana, has Death Touch and Mobilize 1. And that will be, and people aren't going to want to block a 1/3 Death Touch necessarily. Also going to fill your graveyard and surveil, so maybe you can surveil some Furious Forebears into there. And looking at more, this is definitely felt heavier on black. So I have a whole second slide here with black. Sinkhole Surveyor, when it attacks, you endure 1. So it's a 1/3 flyer. It should be able to get through at least a couple times early on and make those spirit tokens. Krumar Initiative, you can pay X life to endure. So if you want to just make a giant spirit token every turn, you got, as much as you have life. Kintree Nurturer is a 2/1 lifelink that endures 1 when it enters. So it's a 2 body for 1 card, which is generally very good in limited, and that is a common. So look out. Also, lifelink, generally very good in limited. It is 1 toughness, but there's a lot of ways to put counters on stuff. So I'd say look out for Kintree Nurturer. That looks like a possible sleeper to me. Sandskidder Outrider is a 4 mana 2/1, but when it enters, you endure 2. So it's a 2/1 with a 2/2. Or a 4/3, and it has Menace. Sidisi Regent of the Mire. So there's a number of sacrifice outlets. We saw the one in white. That's the instant speed sacrifice. Put +1/+1 counters and make your team indestructible. Sidisi Regent of the Mire is a 1/3 tap. Sacrifice a creature you control with mana value X other than Sidisi. Return target creature card with mana value X+1 from your graveyard to the battlefield. Activate only as a sorcery. Seems more like a constructed card, but I'm sure you could get a lot of good value out of it in this deck, even without like specifically building around it. Unburied Earthcarver, this is just your basic common 2-mana 2/2. It's 2 mana to sacrifice a creature. It's going to put a +1/+1 counter, but if you just need that sacrifice outlet in your deck, there's, easy, should be easy ones to have with the Earthcarver. Unrooted Ancestor at uncommon, it's only 1 mana to sacrifice a creature, and then you can use that to give the Unrooted Ancestor indestructible. It does get tapped, so it's essentially the old regenerate rules. Worthy cost, this lets you sacrifice a creature to exile a creature or planeswalker. This seems pretty premium in the set. Also, I'm including Desperate Measures because it's a +1/-1, and when the creature dies, you draw 2 cards. So using it on one of those mobilized tokens, either after it's already hit or if they block it, you just cash it in for 2 cards. Seems pretty good. And then you might wonder, okay, is there a threaten effect? Is there a way with all this sacrifice in the set? Is there a way to steal my opponent's creatures? And the answer is no. I couldn't find something where it's like, gain control of target creature, untap it. It gains haste until end of turn. That's a pretty standard card. They put it in pretty much every set, but maybe intentionally they have not put it in this set. All right, blue-red 2 spells. Let's take a look at this one after I drink some water. Frostcliff Siege. You're going to choose Jeskai or Temur. Jeskai, whenever one or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, draw a card. So, pretty good. And then Temur, creatures you control get +1/+0 and have trample and haste. So, more for the go wide for Temur, and Jeskai is more for like the evasive creatures hitting in, drawing cards. All good for, I guess I'd rather probably draw cards if I'm really all in on the double spell thing. Let me talk about the double spell thing before we read any more of these cards. They do this blue-red spell slinger thing and double spell as a variation of it a lot, and it's usually got the chocolate and the peanut butter problem, where you need the right balance of the chocolate and the peanut butter, and some amount of the time you're going to draw only chocolate or only peanut butter. And in this case, some amount of time you're going to draw the payoffs, but not the enablers, or you're going to draw the enablers, but not the payoffs. That's my worry about this deck. Now, we're going to get into this. This does seem, I have to say, this does seem to be very well supported with the cards that are in the set. So if there is a set where this is a legitimate threat, it could be this one, and they could have even pushed it a little too far. Would love to get your comments in the comments and see what you think of that. But anyways, okay. Moving on to Signpost Uncommon here, we got Effortless Master, 4/3 Vigilance Menace. Enters with 2 +1/+1 counters on it if you've cast 2 or more spells this turn. So I guess you want to cast something before, ideally like a 1-mana spell, and then you're getting a 6/5 Vigilance Menace, which is a good body. I don't know. I don't know about that one, but it is a payoff for double spelling. Makes it a little hard, the fact that it costs 4. There's some things that will let you make your second spell cost 1 less, but still. Also, Signpost, Glacial Dragon Hunt for a blue and a red, so nice and cheap. It's a draw card. Then you may discard a card. When you discard a non-land card this way, it deals 3 damage to target creature. Again, remember the 3 damage thing is pretty key. So that's fantastic. We love card filtering in this kind of deck. And then it harmonizes so you can cast it back again. And you can reduce that by as much as 4. So it would be a blue and a red to do it again. That's pretty good. Rune Scale Storm Brood. Say that 5 times fast. Has a counter spell tagged onto it. That's not great for double spelling because you can't always control when you want to use it. And it's more about holding up. So I'm not super excited about the Omen. Unless you want to like counter your own spell just to get the double spell triggers, which is like, a galaxy brain move. Maybe in some cases would win you the game if you can remember it, but very narrow cases on that. Otherwise, it's a 4-mana 2/4 flying dragon that has whenever you cast a non-creature or dragon spell, it gets +2/+0 until end of turn. That's much better. I think that's a pretty good payoff for the deck, having a big dragon. Now, there are a lot of dragons running around in the set. It is Dragonstorm. So, is it going to get outclassed, or is it just going to trade some of the time? Probably. But it is what it is. All right, let's look at what we've got in blue that supports the blue-red 2 spells archetype. You could have Dragonologist, which enters, looks at the top cards, 6 cards of your library, reveal an instant sorcery or dragon card from among them, and untapped dragons you control have hexproof, which is awesome. There's a lot of things that deal with dragons. I'm not talking about them so much in these archetype things, because I know the archetypes are specific to dragons, but you'll see there's dragon decks you can build in this format. I think every deck to some degree is going to be a dragon deck. So I'm including this here because it's, anything that comes down and puts another card in your hand, whether it's drawing or in this case, picking one out of 6 from the top of your deck, it's gonna you need to keep your hand refueled in order to double spell each turn. You need a lot of things. You're gonna need a lot of mana, potentially. You're gonna need a lot of cards, and then you're gonna want a good payoff for it. So we kind of want to evaluate all of these in terms of that. Ambling Stormshell, again, not specific to this archetype. I think any blue deck will run this as a rare, but just being able to attack and draw 3 cards is nice. Taiga Master Opportunist, this specifically has the flurry mechanic. Whenever you cast your second spell, copy it, exile the spell you cast with 4 time counters on it. If it doesn't have suspend, it gains suspend. So the copy resolves, and then the one you originally cast gets suspend, if I'm understanding that correctly. And if you don't know, suspend is a thing where you put counters on it, and then each upkeep you remove the counter. And when the last comes off, then the spell activates. And if it's a creature, the creature has haste, as if it comes into play. That's a little bit unintuitive potentially with it. And that is a throwback mechanic all the way back to Time Spiral. And then I believe this is the only suspend card in the whole set, but it is at Mythic. They're doing more of this stuff where they have one-off throwbacks of old mechanics in a set. Uncommon Wingblade Disciple. This is my favorite payoff, pretty much. It's a 3-mana 2/2 with flying, which is already nice to have. And then as you're casting your second spell each turn, create a 1/1 white bird creature token with flying. So flooding the board with birds. Now, again, you can only do, I guess, 2 per cycle. So if you can double spell on your turn and then miraculously double spell on your opponent's turn, you could get 2 birds per cycle. But in terms of just sitting out and making 1/1 birds, 1/1 birds will be nice for chump blocking dragons, and that will be nice for eventually just flying in. So I like Wingblade Disciple. We'll see. It might be a little bit outclassed, but we'll see. Wingspan Stride. Again, you're just looking in this deck. I think you're going to be looking for spells that just cost 1. This is a great one because it can slap down, give something flying, and then you can even bounce it back at a certain point, so you can replay it. So you can bounce it back, then the next turn, replay it and get your double spell trigger. Unending Whisper. This is going to be the premium common for this deck, no doubt, because it's just a blue mana sorcery, draw a card, and then you have a Harmonize ability, so you can even replay it from your graveyard. So if you're drafting this deck, look for those Unending Whispers. Humbling Elder, again, just not specific to this deck other than it costs 1 blue. And it is flash, so you can even use it to trigger on your opponent's turn. Durgar Island Dragon is a 6-mana 4/4 flying ward 2, but it also has a relatively inexpensive omen, 1 in a blue. It's going to tap up to 1 target creature, and then you draw a card. Again, talking about drawing cards. Very useful. And it says, then shuffle this card into its owner's library. So I think you would draw the card before the shuffle. Correct me if I'm wrong, rules people. Here's Highspire Bellringer. It's a 1/4 Djinn Monk with flying, and the second spell you cast each turn costs 1 less to cast. So this is the one I was talking about. This is just at common. And traditionally 1/4 flying for 3 is a good rate. So I think people might be sleeping on Highspire Bellringer. If this deck is a deck, this could definitely be it. And any deck can really probably use a 1/4 flyer that's making their other spells cheaper. The thing is, the real power in this set is in the 2 and especially 3 color cards, which we're going to get to. So there's the question of, how much do you even put in of any of these? But I think, looking for value where you can find it, Highspire Bellringer is definitely one to keep on the radar. Kishla Trawlers, also a 3-drop. It's a 3/2. When it enters, you can exile a creature card from your graveyard. When you do, you return an instant or sorcery card from your graveyard to your hand. So, again, anything that comes down lets you get another card back in your hand is going to be useful because you got to keep that hand stocked in order to double spell. Ringing Strike Mastery is a nice removal spell here. It is undoable in the late game, but I think that's why the blue-red deck especially will like this, because it just comes down. It's going to tap something down. It's going to stay tap down. So you get that tempo, and it's only 1 blue. Unfortunately, not an instant or sorcery, but can't have everything. Roiling Dragonstorm is a 2-mana enchantment for 1 and a blue. When this enchantment enters, you draw 2 cards and discard a card. So again, that card velocity. And when a dragon you control enters, it comes back to your hand. So again, you can replay it. It's only 2 mana. That should be a big double spell enabler. In terms of what you could find in red to support this, oh, and I didn't organize these very well. The only rare that really stuck out to me is Corey Steelcutter, which has Flurry. It's an equipment for 2 mana. The equipped creature gets +1/+1, has trample and haste, and it costs 1 and a red to equip. But it also has a Flurry ability. Whenever you cast your second spell each turn, you make a 1/1 white monk creature token with prowess, and you may attach the equipment to it. So, pretty nice for a double spell deck. Just overwhelming people with a bunch of prowess monks is a tried and true strategy in Magic, and Corey Steelcutter will allow you to do it in limited. We got the Equilibrium Adept. It's a 2/4 dog monk for 4 mana, and you can exile the top card of your library when it enters. Till your end of your next turn, you may play that card, and then it has Flurry ability. When you cast your second spell each turn, this creature gains a double strike until end of turn. So hopefully you exile something you can play, you double spell, and it's attacking as a 2/4 double strike the next turn. Not super excited about it, but maybe this deck will use it. There's also Reverberating Summons. This is also 1 in a red. At the beginning of each combat, if you cast 2 or more spells this turn, this enchantment becomes a 3/3 monk creature with haste, in addition to its other types until end of turn. And then for 1 in a red, you can discard your hand, sacrifice the enchantment, and draw 2 cards. So once you're spent, you can't activate the monk anymore, then just cash this in for 2 cards, which is not too bad. Meticulous Artisan, I like this one. It's a 3/3 prowess, enters with a treasure token. Treasure tokens are going to be really useful, I think. I don't know if you're going to want to spend 4 mana to have a body that comes with 1, but there's a good chance it's useful. It is just common. We've got Jeskai Devotee, which I'm calling out specifically because it has Flurry. It can just become a 3/3 if you're flurrying, but it's just gravy as in addition to the mana fixing. I don't know how often you're really going to care about that +1/+1 counter, but it is what it is. Devoted Duelist is a 2/1 for 2. It has haste and it has Flurry. When you cast your second spell each turn, this creature deals 1 damage to each opponent. Again, not overwhelmingly good, but I mean, it's already good to double spell, right? So they don't want to make the payoffs too great, and this is common. I don't think it's going to hurt you to have a couple Devoted Duelists out while you're double spelling. It is fairly easy to double spell itself, being a 2 mana thing. Also, on the removal, you're going to be competing with all the decks for this, but Channel Dragonfire is a 1 mana red, one red sorcery dealing 2 damage to any target, and then has Harmonize 5 red red. And how are you going to harmonize with something that's that expensive? Well, you could use something like Rescue Leopard, which is a 4/2 for 3 mana, and when it becomes tapped, you may discard a card if you do draw a card. So this is your premium. What do you say, premium? This is your common Harmonize enabler, and it's also going to help card filter while it does so. Rescue Leopard, just a little role player there. Breaching Dragonstorm for 5 mana. When it enters, exile cards from the top of your library until you exile a non-land card. You may cast it without paying its mana cost if that spell's mana value is 8 or less. If you don't, put that card into your hand. And then when a dragon you control enters, return this enchantment to its owner's hand. We saw this one earlier, but I kind of considered it a little bit of a fixing because it lets you play things without playing their mana cost. But the other thing to keep it in mind is it's a 1-card double spell. So you're going to exile the non-land card, and presumably it's 8 or less, so you'll cast it, and then you'll have played 2 spells. Then we got Fleeting Effigy. This one I really like for this deck. I think you should high pick the Fleeting Effigy. It's a 2/2 haste that's going to return to your hand every end step. But that's fine because you want a 1 red mana stuff. This is your little double spell friend. And then if you do have a ton of mana just sitting around, you can pump it into this guy and give it +2/+0. And he can hit pretty hard. So loving the Fleeting Effigy. Iridescent Tiger is a 5 mana 3/4 that enters and makes Wooburg. So again, very easy to double spell off of that. And Narset's Rebuke, 5 mana, deal 5 to a creature. Makes Jeskai, a blue, a red, and a white. And that will also be an easy way to double spell once you get to 5 mana. Continuing on, we're not done with red. There's still more. And I will drink a little bit of water as you read these cards. Tursa Light Shatter. So at the rarity of a rare, it's a 3/3 haste for 3. It enters, you get to discard up to 2 cards and draw that many cards. So there's that card filtering. You don't want to flood out on your lands. And when it attacks, if there are 7 or more cards in your graveyard, you can exile a card at random, and you may play that card this turn. So again, helping with the double spell. Might be a little bit of like, once you have 7 cards in your graveyard, then is a 3/3 body really that good? Are you just kind of like cashing this in to play something from your graveyard again? Maybe there's a way to do it with combat tricks where you exile a combat trick and the opponent doesn't want to block it. But you still do have to play the combat trick, and then it's exiled, and then you have 1 less card in your library, in your graveyard. So maybe Tursa won't trigger next time. I don't know about Tursa. Could be more of a constructed card than a limited card. We'll have to see. Seize Opportunity. And I do talk about whether there's a mono red aggro deck, and I think, if there is, maybe Tursa would fit into a mono red aggro deck in the limited format. But back to Seize Opportunity. We'll get to that in the hidden archetypes section of this video. Choose 1. Exile the top 2 cards of your library until the end of your next turn. You may play those cards, or up to 2 target creatures. Each get +2/+1 until end of turn. Don't really love combat tricks once they start costing 3 or more mana. But the Impulse Draw at 3 or more mana side of this seems okay. Seems decent for this deck. And it's till end of your next turn, so that could help. Storm Shriek Feral is one of these dragons with an omen. And the omen is discard a card if you do draw 2 cards. Which we know, we like the card velocity. 3/3 flying haste for 5 mana otherwise. And with expensive fire breathing, 1 and a red, this creature gets +1/+0 until end of turn. It is common. We'll see if it has a role. Again, that 3 toughness seems pretty bad, but on the other hand, are you even casting the dragon side that often? Or are you just omening a lot? I think usually every red deck that's a little bit aggro or that is a spell slinger is going to want this type of effect, the discard draw 2. So we'll have to see. Sunset Strike Master is nice. just having more mana to work with is good. So pairing this with more mana, if you go on the teamer side, there's a lot of ways in green to add more mana. So that's something to consider. We also got Wild Ride, which is another 1 mana spell here, +3/+0, and haste for a creature, but it is sorcery speed. But it's 1 red, and when you harmonize, it's 4 and a red. So let's say you play it on a 2 power creature, and then just tap that creature to harmonize again. You don't even attack with that creature, but you just use the +3/+0 for the harmonize ability. This can be a double spell in one card, provided you have a 2 power creature that you feel comfortable tapping. Sorcery speed. All right, green black counters is what they say the archetype is. Obviously, green black is going to do some graveyard shenanigans as well. The siege for this color is just a black and a green, so very inexpensive siege. And whenever a counter is put on a creature you control, draw a card is the Sultai ability. It is gated to once per turn, but that I don't think it's going to be hard to put counters on stuff, so that's pretty good. I would definitely consider that pretty strong and limited. The Abzan side is whenever you attack, put a +1/+1 counter on target attacking creature. It gains Menace until end of turn. So just similar counter enabler. At the uncommon signposts, we have 3 of those. Host of the Hereafter is a 2/2 zombie warlock for 2, a black and a green. Enters with 2 +1/+1 counters on it, so it's really a 4/4. And whenever this creature or another creature you control dies, if it had counters on it, put its counters on up to 1 target creature you control. So this is, play a bunch of your stuff with counters, trade them off, sacrifice them, whatever. The counters stick around. We know that's a pretty good effect, pretty decent effect. So that's Host of the Hereafter. I'm not like super high on it. It's not pulling me into black-green, but I think if I'm in black-green, I'm probably happy to have that. Stalwart Successor is a 3/2 for 1, a black and a green, so 3 mana. It has Menace or Menace. Whenever 1 or more counters are put on a creature you control, if it's the first time counters have been put on that creature this turn, they get an extra +1/+1 counter on them. Little bonus from the Stalwart Successor. This card is just gravy. I mean, the stats are nice. I think it will probably just perform based on stats, but not super high on that ability. It's a little bit win more, but we'll see. I mean, I think counters can be underestimated. If there's not enough removal on your opponent's side of the board, and you're just building up giant creatures with counters. Our Omen Dragon here is Disruptive Stormbrood. The Omen side is destroy target creature with power 3 or less, which you probably want to draft that even if you're not green. You'll probably just put that in any deck. Again, there's that 3, that keyword 3 with the removal. Keep an eye on. It itself is a 3/3 for 5, and when it enters, it's going to destroy up to 1 target artifact or enchantment. And you're going to have a lot of these sieges running around. We've got the sieges for each of the 5 2-color enemy pairs here. There's some other good enchantments. There's artifacts are going to be really good for fixing if the 5-color deck is as big a thing as I think. So, not the best rate, 3 mana or 5 mana 3/3 that blows up an artifact or enchantment, but you're probably happy to run it if you have the mana and you don't want to cast the Omen for the 2nd or 3rd or 4th time. You got that. So, there's a rare that might draw you towards this, which is Karsi Revenant. It's a 3/3 flying Death Touch lifelink. Does have Renew, so it also works in the blue-green, Sultai Nexus very nicely. The Renew is a thing. I don't know if we've encountered a Renew creature yet, but if you don't know, it's a thing where you exile it from a creature from the graveyard and get some ability. In this case, putting a flying counter, a death touch counter, a lifelink counter on target creature. So, what is it called? Nighthawk Vampire. This is essentially Power Crab Nighthawk Vampire. and then turn your thing into a Nighthawk Vampire, especially if you mill over it. Looks pretty good. I think there's going to be a lot of limited games decided by a Flying Death Touch lifelink 3/3. Yeth Entomb Guard is a 2/3 menace, and whenever a creature you control with a counter on it deals combat damage to a player, you draw a card and lose 1 life. Now, notice, not gated to once per turn. This seems incredibly strong to me. If I'm in a deck with lots of creatures with counters on it, and it won't be hard to put a counter on this, and it has menace, and be getting in and drawing cards and playing more creatures and getting more counters. I like Yeth Entomb Guard a lot as a payoff for this deck. 100 Battle Veteran. It's a 4-mana 4/2. As long as there are 3 or more different kinds of counters among creatures you control, this creature gets +2/+4. So if you've got the Karsi Revenant, if you've renewed it and put all the different types of counters on something, it could be a 6/6. Now, you can cast the card from your graveyard, and if you do, it enters with a finality counter on it. So that's one kind of counter. I think the +1/+1 counters are very easy to come by. The third type of counter may be a little harder. We do have Alchemist's Assistant here for 1 and a black. It's a 2/1 lifelink, and you can renew it to exile it and put a lifelink counter on a creature. So there's that, but that is at uncommon. Also at 1 out of black, but this time at common, is the Unburied Earthcarver. We saw this. This is your basic sacrifice outlet, but it's also put a +1/+1 counter outlet, and it is at instant speed, so that can really mess with combat. Also at 1 and a black, Krumar Initiate. This one's uncommon again. 2/2. X and a black and tap, pay X life. This creature endures X. Activate only as a sorcery. So you can put a bunch of +1/+1 counters on it if you want. Again, I think the main use is going to be making tokens with the Krumar, with Herald and Krumar's Initiate. Kintree Nurturer for 2 and a black is a 2/1 lifelink. We also talked about this one. Comes in, endures 1. So you can have it as a 3/2 lifelink, and it has the +1/+1 counter on it. That's nice. Aggressive Negotiations is your discard spell. Target opponent reveals their hand. You choose a non-land card from it, exile that card, and then you put a +1/+1 counter on up to 1 target creature you control. So targeted discard ++1/+1 counter. I actually like this a lot. There's a lot of haymakers in this set. People are going to be building up to 6, 7, 8 mana, and being able to take that out, especially exile it because there's a lot of graveyard recursion, and then also leave behind a counter, especially in this deck. Seems pretty good to me. Delta Bloodflies, another 1 and a black creature at common, flying 1/2. When it attacks, if you control a creature with a counter on it, each opponent loses 1 life. Not a great payoff, but it is a payoff there at common. Feral Deathgorger is the Omen Dragon in black. It has Sorcery Omen, put a +1/+1 counter on up to 1 target creature and draw a card, and you can do that for just 1 and a black. It is sorcery speed, so the blow-up potential is there. And I think if it gets blown out, it ends up in your graveyard. It doesn't omen back into your deck. So that is something to watch out for. And then once you want to cast it as a dragon, it's 5 and a black for a 3/5 Flying Death Touch. When it enters, you get to yoink 2 cards from a graveyard, which that effect has been better and better as they continue to develop more graveyard stuff. In terms of what you can do in this deck in green, Warden of the Grove is your, Windmill Slam. Rare here. It's 2 and a green for a 2/2 at the beginning of your end step. It's a Hydra. Put a +1/+1 counter on this Hydra. And whenever another non-token creature you control enters, it endures X, where X is the number of counters on the creature. So if it sticks around, it's just letting everything come in with +1/+1 counters, including possibly a lot of +1/+1 counters. Warden of the Grove is pretty nice. I think basically kill as fast as you can type of creature. An uncommon here, we have Inspirited Vanguard for 4 and a green. You get a 3/2 that whenever it enters or attacks, endures 2. I'm not super high on that one. Knockout Maneuver is, it's removal. Everyone's going to want it. It's your 3 mana sorcery speed fight spell. Puts a +1/+1 counter, and then the creature deals damage equal to its power. Sage of the Fang is 2 and a green for a 2/2, also uncommon here. When this creature enters, you put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. And then it has a renew ability, that lets you exile it and put a +1/+1 counter on a creature, and then double the number of +1/+1 counters on that creature. I think there's silly stuff you can do with this in terms of like how good it is. Probably not that great, but you know, in terms of magical Christmas land, getting a bunch of +1/+1 counters on something and then doubling them, it's too much fun. Maybe you want to put them on the Segu Pummeler for 3 and a green. It's a 4/4 reach. And then it also has a renew ability for 4 and a green to exile it from your graveyard and put 2 +1/+1 counters and a reach counter on a creature. Champion of Dusan. And I think reach is going to be pretty good. So don't sleep on the Pummeler. We saw 4 mana, 4/4 reach was good stats in the last set. So, yeah. I don't want to jazz past the Pummeler too quickly here. But on to Champion of Dusan, 2 and a green for a 4/2 trample. Going to be nice for harmonizing with that extra power. And 1 and a green, exile this card from your graveyard, put a +1/+1 counter and a trample counter on target creature, activate only as a sorcery. A 4/2 trample is going to end up in your graveyard quite a bit, so just having that 4/2, getting in, maybe getting a little bit of damage, trading off, and then being able to plus up something in the late game. Not bad value for a common. 2 and a green also, but this time at uncommon, we've got Attuned Hunter. It's a 3/3 trample. And whenever one or more cards leave your graveyard during your turn, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature, and you're going to go, okay, well, leave your graveyard is the blue-green thing, but as we've seen, we've got a lot of this renew stuff. I think there's going to be plenty to trigger this. I wouldn't be scared to put this in a deck that didn't have blue. Attuned Hunter. Synchronized Charge is a sorcery for 1 and a green. You distribute 2 +1/+1 counters among 1 or 2 creatures you control, and creatures you control with counters on them gain vigilance and trample until end of turn. Now, here's that thing where the black-green payoff that's giving an extra +1/+1 counter. I think with Synchronized Charge, then you're getting 2 creatures, each getting 2 +1/+1 counters. This also has Harmonize, which is nice. I think it's going to be fairly easy to harmonize with these big kind of vanilla creatures that have a lot of counters on them. So Harmonize will have some value in this deck for sure. If nothing else, triggering the Attuned Hunter. The Duziut Earthcarver is 5 and a green. It's a 4/4 reach, and it enters and endures 3. So it can either be a 4/4 with a 3/3, or it can be a 7/7. This is your big dumb green creature at common. Elephant Druid. I mean, 2 creatures is always good. I'm less excited about making a 7/7, although it is a reach. And I'm going to block a lot of dragons if they don't have the removal for it. You know, maybe that's a good play. At 1 and a green, at uncommon, we have Formation Breaker, which is a 2/1. Can't be blocked by creatures that have less power. And as long as you control a creature with a counter on it, it gets +1/+2. So let's just say you drop this on turn 2, turn 3, you do something that puts a +1/+1 counter on this. This immediately becomes a 4/4, and it can't be blocked. It can't be chump blocked. I think this is a card that people will probably sleep on early and then probably not so much late. That's my guess. That's my prediction. Trade Route Envoy for 3 and a green is a 4/3 dog soldier. When this creature enters, draw a card if you control a creature with a counter on it. If you don't draw a card this way, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. This is the Sorolf's Packmate of the set. It's just a common. It's going to be trivially easy to have a creature with a counter on it, especially by turn 4. And you know, and the fail case of giving a 4 mana 5/4 is not that bad. So I like Trade Route Envoy a lot. Question is, how many can you run in a deck? If you have the counter support, maybe a lot. One thing I didn't put on this slide is there is reprint of Snakeskin Veil, which is put a +1/+1 counter and something gets hexproof for 1 green at instant speed. Every deck's going to want that, so I didn't necessarily put it here, but that's just another thing to keep in mind as we look at this slide. And then Einok Wayfarer, I'm less excited about. It's more about decks that care about milling, I think. But you could just, if you need a 2-drop that has a +1/+1 counter, that comes with a +1/+1 counter, a little bit of a filler, like a D-level card here. Now, I put green-black question mark because white also has a lot with +1/+1 counters. I think if you're doing the +1/+1 counter thing, you're almost always going to go Abzan, which is green, black, white. We talked about Anafenza, which is just a little factory for spirits, but could also be a factory for +1/+1 counters. There is a mythic called Smile at Death. At the beginning of your upkeep, return up to 2 target creature cards with power 2 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. Put a +1/+1 counter on each of those creatures. We've got Descendant of Storms, which endures 1 whenever it attacks, and you pay 1 and a white. Duty Beyond Death, which is that instant speed thing. You can sacrifice a creature and put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. Lightfoot Technique is another combat trick. +1/+1 counter on a creature, gains flying and indestructible until end of turn. So pretty nice for this deck. There's the Loxodon Battle Priest at uncommon. 5 mana, 3/5. At the beginning of combat on your turn, you put a +1/+1 counter on another target creature you control. So it's kind of the, what was that? Leonin. What was that famous card that puts a +1/+1 counter on a creature every combat step? It's very useful ability. Maybe less so at 5 mana, but you know, if your deck cares about the +1/+1 counters, you've got it there. There's also Poised Practitioner for 2 and a white. It's a 2/3 with Flurry. Whenever you cast your second spell each turn, you put a +1/+1 counter on it, and you scry 1. The scry is nice, obviously. All right, moving on to white and red. The stated goals, the stated archetype for the white and red decks is to go wide with tokens. There's obviously going to be a flurry thing there too. But let's see. So Windcrag Siege, it's 1 in a red and a white. Choosing Mardu or Jeskai. If you choose Mardu, if a creature attacking causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time. So that can just be insane with the Mobilize. There's a lot of Mobilize triggers. Jeskai, at the beginning of your upkeep, create a 1/1 red goblin creature token. It gains lifelink and haste until end of turn. So that's cool. Quarry Mountain Stalwart is our first uncommon signpost. It's a 3/3 for 3, has flurry. Whenever you cast your second spell each turn, that deals 2 damage to each opponent and you gain 2 life. Pretty good payoff for flurrying in white-red. So again, is it go wide tokens, or are you going more for a flurry kind of thing? It'd be interesting to see. I wonder if they did that to kind of stretch you so that you try to splash Quarry Mountain Stalwart from your blue-red decks. Also, we have Frontline Rush. So for a red and a white, you can choose one. It's an instant speed. You either get 2 1/1 red goblin creature tokens, and in prowess style decks, you definitely love spells that make creatures. That's fantastic. Or you can give target creature +X until end of turn, where X is the number of creatures you control. And imagine you're doubling up your Mobilize triggers. You've got a board of like 10 1/1s attacking, and then whichever one they don't block, you frontline rush and give it +10/+10 and just close out the game. I can definitely see a lot of games ending that way. The signpost uncommon dragon is Twin Maw Stormbrood. Most often you're going to be casting this Charring Bite, 5 damage to target creature without flying, so 5 damage to any of the big ground creatures. You know, it's not going to hit the dragons, but on the other hand, like just a removal spell that keeps shuffling itself back into your deck. That seems pretty strong. And then eventually you can cast 6 mana, 5/4 flying. When this creature enters, you gain 5 life. Again, that's also, we've seen these like 6 mana creatures, they enter, you gain 5 life. They're just great stabilizers. I'm really high on Twin Maw Stormbrood. I really think that's a good one. And you might just in any white deck want that, whether or not you can cast the Omen side. Archetypes. So in white, we talk about Anafenza. I think I've probably driven everybody crazy talking about how much I like this Anafenza. Just fits into a lot of decks, I think. Elspeth Stormslayer at Mythic. This is one of the chase mythics of the set. If one or more tokens would be created under your control, twice that many of those tokens are created instead. Fantastic commander ability, but also can be very good if built around a little bit in limited. I mean, you don't really have to build around it because the +1 is create a 1/1 white creature token. So you're going to +1 make 2 1/1s. The 0 is put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. Those creatures gain flying until your next turn. So kind of just an Anthem, possibly close out the game with a 0 effect on a Planeswalker. And then the -3 is removal. Destroy target creature opponent controls with mana value 3 or greater. So Elspeth is a windmill slam bomb. If you see it, grab it. If nothing else, to just trade to a commander player who really wants it. Voice of Victory, 1 and a white, is a 1/3 mobilize 2. This is actually rare. And because it has the ability, your opponents can't cast spells during your turn. More of a constructed ability, but just a 1/3 mobilize 2, so a 1/3 that's going to make 2 1/1s when it attacks, and we've seen, lots of good payoffs for that. I think you'll take it. You'll be happy with it. There aren't a lot of 2-drops in this set apparently. So being able to play to the board on turns 1 and 2 might give you an advantage in some, larger percentage of games than maybe you're used to. We also have Teeming Dragonstorm. It's 3 and a white for an enchantment at uncommon. When this enchantment enters, you make 2/2 white soldier creature tokens. So 2 bodies and 1 card, always good. And then when a dragon you control enters, it comes back to your hand, so you can be able to play it again. Sunpearl Kirin. It's 2/1 flash flying, and when it enters, you return up to one other target non-land permanent you control to its owner's hand. If it was a token, draw a card. So what do we do with those mobilized tokens before they sacrifice on the end step? You can bounce them back and draw a card with the Sunpearl Kirin. And a 2/1 flying is great. These bounce effects have been really good. People are already talking about this card for constructed. Any kind of card that has an ETB that you can buy back with this. If you know what you're doing, these cards can be. It seems like a drawback, but it's really not. It's actually a bonus. There's also the gotta catch 'em all of the set, Tempest Hawk. Ka-ka! It's a 3-mana 2/2 flyer. When it deals combat damage to a player, you may search your library for a card named Tempest Hawk, reveal it, put it in your hand, and shuffle. And a deck can have any number of cards named Tempest Hawk. Dalkoven Pack Beasts 04. We talked about this. This is the Vigilance Mobilize guy. Mobilizing 3 is pretty good. If you have stuff that's going to pump your whole board, and we'll see that in red, there's a good one. It's going to be pretty strong. Descendant of Storms. We also saw this one already. 1 mana 2/1 can endure for if you pay some mana. Duty Beyond Death we saw. Buffing up your whole board by sacrificing probably one of those mobilized tokens. Pretty good. Fortress Kinguard. When it enters, you endure 1. So 2 mana with a 1/2 and a 1/1 is great. Usually it's a 2 mana, 2/1, get 2 1/1s. The fact that it's a 1/2 and can block mobilized tokens is actually not nothing too. So I really like Fortress Kinguard. I think it's just, 2 rectangles for the price of 1 is generally very good and limited. Furious Forebear. We saw this one also already. 1 and a white, 3/1, dies. You can bring it back. I don't know why I put that exactly, but I guess your mobilized tokens are dying. They're sacrificing themselves, so you can use that as a easy way to bring back the Forebear. Salt Road Pack Beast costs 1 less to cast for each creature you control, but nominally is 6 mana, 5 and a white. You get a 4/3, and when it enters, you draw a card. These cards are generally pretty good. The cost less and draw cards. Saw one of those way back in one of the Innistrad, the recent Innistrad sets, I think it was. Ooh, this helmet is weighing on me. I guess I can take it off. You guys can't even see me, right? So yeah, I like Salt Road Pack Beast. This is the deck for it. You're going to have a lot of small creatures. It's going to be inexpensive. Also, we got red. Red is a little less supporting of this, in my opinion. I didn't have a lot that I pulled out in red, but the ones that I did are pretty good. We got this 1/1 that mobilizes one, and then you can eventually cash it in to deal damage equal to the number of creatures you control to target creature. Again, it's not going to count itself. It should be like not 1+1, I think. Shock Brigade. So 1 in a red for a 1/3 menace. You mobilize one when it attacks. Just a solid role player here. I like all these low to the ground ones. Shocking Sharpshooter is one I really would keep an eye on. It's a 1/3 reach, and whenever another creature you control enters, this creature deals 1 damage to target opponent. So that's traditionally a very good ability. And when you think about your mobilizing each turn, if you're mobilizing 3 and getting that extra 3 damage with your Ox or whatever, you can close out the game pretty quick if you build around that. Underfoot Underdogs is a 1/2 that comes with a 1/1. And it has a 1 and a tap. Target creature you control with power 2 or less can't be blocked this turn. So great with your mobilize stuff. You know, make your 1/3 Shock Brigade unblockable, or I guess maybe your star 3 Zergo's Vanguard unblockable. So for 2 in a red, you're gonna mobilize 1, and its power is equal to the number of creatures you control. So that again, when you're making the instant board, so you make it unblockable and then make the instant board with all the mobilize triggers. And then you can make all those 1/1s into 2/1s and also add an extra 1/1 with War Effort. Essentially mobilizes 1 for each time you attack. The thing about War Effort is it's going to close out a lot of games. There are some games where you're behind, it's a terrible card. Because I guess it does give your blockers +1/+0. It's not just during the attack, but you don't get the attack ability. But anyways, it's something to keep in mind. I think probably be happy to have one of them in your decks. Green Blue leaves the graveyard. So the siege for this one is called Glacier Wood Siege. It's for 1, a green, and a blue. You're going to choose Temur or Sultai. If you choose Temur, whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, target player mills 4 cards. And you might be wondering, is there a mill deck in the format? We'll talk about that in the Hidden Archetypes section. Sultai, you may play lands from your graveyard, is the ability. There's Evolving Wilds. I guess you can self-mill. That's generally a pretty strong ability in like Commander and stuff, but for limited, I'm probably choosing Temur, and I'm probably trying to mill out my opponent. So there's a lot of self-mill, so they'll be helping me out. We got the Kishla Skimmer as one of the uncommon signposts. It's a 2/2 flyer. Whenever a card leaves your graveyard during your turn, draw a card. This ability triggers only once each turn, but just triggering it once per turn should be enough to get a lot of advantage. Also, for the same price, we have Auroral Procession. It's an instant, and it returns a card from your graveyard to your hand. So, regrowth at instant speed by adding blue mana to it. Whirlwing Stormbrood. Say that 5 times fast. Has a sorcery omen. Put 3 +1/+1 counters on target creature you control. That costs 2 and a green. And the dragon side is 4 and a blue. It's flash flying for a 4/3 that lets you cast sorcery spells and dragon spells as though they had flash. Neither of those do anything with leaving the graveyard, but it's not a bad value. Not that excited about it. For dragon decks, it should be good. Let's go back to focusing on leaving the graveyard. What does that mean? Naga Fleshcrafter is a creature with Renew. We got Lazed Prowler has Renew. Constrictor Sage has Renew. Agent of Kotis has Renew. Champion of Dusan has Renew. As we know, you can just exile them from your graveyard, but you got to get them in your graveyard. This is why you have stuff like Stillness and Motion. This is sort of I was calling it Slow Doomsday. For 1 and a blue, you get enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, mill 3 cards, which is a lot. I mean, you're going to mill yourself out is what you immediately think when you read that. Well, then the next clause is, then if your library has no cards in it, exile this enchantment, put 5 cards from your graveyard on top of your library in any order. So once it's a little bit playing on the knife's edge, but once you've milled out your whole graveyard, then you can stack it with your 5 best cards and hope that you can close out the game. And I mean, the game will have gone fairly long just to do that. But on the other hand, as an enabler, just putting all these renew cards in your graveyard, it might be okay. It's only 2 mana. So I'm torn on Stillness in Motion. What do you guys think? Is it a constructed plant or just a straight up trap, a trap card you should never play? Or is it going to have its uses? Are clever people going to figure out a way to make Stillness in Motion into a pretty strong card? You guys let me know. All right. So we talked about Renew. I don't need to go into the specific abilities of each of these. But let's jump down to Aegis Sculpture, which is one of the payoffs here. It's a 2/3 flyer with Ward 2. It does cost 4 mana to get out. But at the beginning of your upkeep, it's not a payoff, but an enabler. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may exile 2 cards from your graveyard if you do put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. So if you're willing to cash in your graveyard, it's going to get pretty big, and it does have Ward 2. On the other hand, it starts out with 3 toughness, so it's going to be weak to all the cheaper removal spells. I'm iffy on Aegis Sculptor. Kishla Trawlers is 2 and a blue. For a 3/2, when it enters, you may exile a creature card from your graveyard. When you do, return target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard to your hand. So there's another enabler there. Traveling Botanist. It's a 2/3 for just 2 mana. When it becomes tapped, you look at the top card of your library. If it's a land card, you can reveal it and put it into your hand. If you don't put it in your hand, you may put it in your graveyard. So that, the Einok Wayfarer, and the Sibsig Appraiser are all ways to put cards in your graveyard. The Appraiser is 2 and a blue for a 2/1. Enters, you look at the top 2 cards of your library, you get 1 into hand and 1 into the graveyard. Small, but that can add up, especially in this deck where you're getting a lot of value. Piercing Exhale, you can behold a dragon, and if you do, you get to surveil with it. So that's another sort of enabler. And again, there's enough dragons running around, probably shouldn't be a problem. Ronvale Rejuvenator is a 4 mana dork, but I think more importantly, it comes in and mills 3 cards. And then you can tap to add green equal to its power. So taps for 2 green, you can cast some big stuff. If you're playing big green Reanimator stuff, look for Rainvale Rejuvenator. Sage of the Fang is our 2 mana friend. It comes in and puts a +1/+1 counter on a creature. Can also double up the stuff. But this deck doesn't care about that as much as other than just, again, it's a renew. It's going to trigger leave the graveyard. Tuned Hunter. Here's a payoff. 3/3 trample. Whenever one or more cards leave your graveyard during your turn, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. Heritage Reclamation. There's also kind of the hidden mode of exile up to 1 target card from a graveyard. Draw a card. You can use that. You can exile a card from your own graveyard to trigger your leaves the graveyard stuff. Synchronized Charge has Harmonize. Nature's Rhythm has Harmonize. Roamer's Routine has Harmonize. Harmonize and Renew both are mechanics that have cards leaving the graveyard. Rite of Renewal. If you're self-milling a lot, don't forget to include stuff like Rite of Renewal that returns up to 2 target permanent cards from your graveyard to your hand. And then you can shuffle up to 4 target cards from your graveyard into your library. And you do have to exile Rite of Renewal, but there is those decks that like to loop stuff. Sometimes happen. Green-blue ? Because black also has stuff that cares about leaving the graveyard, or that triggers leaving the graveyard. Won't belabor that too much. Okay, because we want to get into the 3 color archetypes. Each of the 3 colors has 2 mythics. One of those mythics is going to be a spirit dragon, a really sweet dragon. Then they have 4 rares. One of those rares is going to be a legendary creature. and one of them is going to be a Saga. A lot of cycles in this set, so hopefully the way I've laid this out, you're kind of seeing the structure of how this set is structured. All right, so we've laid the foundation, Abzan. It's either a white-black or a green-black base splashing into the other color. Parination is just a pretty sweet card. It's a 6-mana reanimator, but the thing you reanimator comes back with a hexproof and an indestructible counter on it. I mean, if you care about counters, that's good, but also just, you know, self-mill your Beator akin to all and then bring it back as hexproof and indestructible. I don't think it's going to be hard to cast any of these guys. Just keep that in mind when you see the power levels of these three color cards. Beator kin to all is a 5/7 flying 5-mana dragon. At the beginning of your end step, if creatures you control have total toughness 10 or greater, so you just need 3 more toughness, you draw a card. Then if creatures you control have total toughness 20 or greater, untap each creature you control. Then if creatures you control have total toughness 40 or greater, each opponent loses half their life, rounded up. That's for commander. Never mind. But I mean, you're going to play a 5-mana 5/7, you know, draws you a card a lot of the time. You're just going to play that. Windmill Slam. Fellothar, Dawn of the Abzan, costing just Abzan, a white, a black, and a green, for a 3/3 trample. When it enters or attacks, you may sacrifice a non-land permanent. When you do, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. So your deck has sacrifice synergies. If it has +1/+1 counter synergies, even if it doesn't, just having a 3/3 trample for 3, you probably play it. Yathan Road Watcher is 1, a white, a black, and a green, so 4 total mana. For a human scout, that's also a 3/3. When it enters, if you cast it, mill 4 cards. You can't blink and do a turbo mill. When you do, return target creature card with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. So, I mean, it can be an enabler on the self-mill. It can be a little bit of a payoff to bring back one of the smaller creatures. Maybe your Fellothar. You could play it in a 5-color deck because there's just all these, you know, creatures that cost the 3-color cost that are really good. Severance Priest, for example, 3-mana 3/3, Death Touch. When this creature enters, target opponent reveals their hand. You may choose a non-land card from it. If you do, exile that card. When this creature leaves the battlefield, the exiled card's owner creates an XX white spirit creature token where X is the value of the exiled card. I hope that makes sense. You attack opponent's hand, you take probably their biggest thing because you want to make a big creature yourself, and you get 2 bodies. One of them a 3/3 Death Touch, and one of them just a big spirit, and you got rid of a card out of your opponent's hand. Is that a 2-for-1 or a 3-for-1? You're never not gonna play this. Saga Revival of the Ancestors. Chapter 1, create 3 1/1 white spirit creature tokens. Chapter 2, distribute 3 +1/+1 counters among 1, 2, or 3 creatures. Chapter 3, creatures you control gain trample and lifelink. Fantastic. It is 4 mana, but, you know, 4 mana make 3 1/1s is something you would do anyway in limited, and then all the other stuff can be gravy. And plus, you have all these things that pay you off for going wide or the counters. Plus getting lifelink, you're pretty stable if you can get to that chapter 3. If your opponent can't beat you before chapter 3, these, you know, this is going to be a theme. But the 3-color cards are fantastic. We're not done with the Abzan. That was the rare and mythic suite. Then every 3-color archetype, excuse me, every 3-color archetype. Drink some more water. Also has uncommons and a common. One of those uncommons will be a dragon. In this case, we have Armament Dragon. It's a 3/4 flyer for 6, but when it enters, you're going to put 3 +1/+1 counters distributed how you want. We also have the Baby Siege Rhino Skirmish Rhino. Costs an Abzan for a 3/4 trample. When it enters, each opponent loses 2 life, you gain 2 life. Again, you don't have to slam too many of those, and you're way ahead in a game. And 3/4 is a good body. There are people even talking about playing this in constructed. Skirmish Rhino, uncommon. Every 3-color pair also has these 2-brid spells. In this case, Kin Tree Severance. So you play either 2 generic or a white mana, 2 generic or a black mana, 2 generic or a green mana. And I should have included these in the colorless. There's a hidden colorless deck potentially. We'll get to that in the hidden decks. But what does Kin Tree Severance do? Well, it's just straight up removal, exile target permanent with mana value 3 or greater. Again, every deck is going to want this because every deck can basically play it. If you're touching, at least 2 out of 3 of these colors, you're very happy probably to play it. To play 4 mana to remove their big thing, to exile it, get it out of there. And we also have it common, another 2-brid card. So 2 in a white, 2 in a black, 2 in a green optionals. Human Citizen, 2/2. When this creature enters or dies, you put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. That I'm less excited about paying. I'm not paying 6 mana for that. So of all of these, maybe the Reputable Merchant is the one getting skipped. Let's look at what Jeskai has in the Rare and Mythic suite. The big splashy Mythic that is not a dragon is Jeskai Revelation. 4 a blue, a red, and a white. Instant speed. Return target spell or permanent to its owner's hand. It deals 4 damage to any target. You make 2 1/1 white monk creature tokens with prowess. You draw 2 cards, and you gain 4 life. AKA 7 mana, completely shift the momentum of the game. This is a great payoff for playing it. Basically, if you can get to 7 mana and you play this, there's a good chance, even if you're behind, you turn the game around just off the total value of this. It reminds me of like Mascot Exhibition in Strixhaven, cards like that just do an insane amount of things. There's enough ramp and stuff. I really don't think it's going to be necessarily a problem to get to 7 mana either. You will have to get through opponents casting things like Shiko, Paragon of the Way for 5 mana, 2 a blue, a red, and a white. Here's our Spirit Dragon in Jeskai. It's a 4/5 Flying Vigilance. When it enters, you exile a non-land card with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard. Again, these, pay attention. There's a lot of these things that just cost 3, 1 of each of the colors. You copy it, then you may cast the copy without paying its mana cost. Sure why it has to be copied and again cast the copy. I guess so you don't loop it. They want the exile in there. We've also got Narset, no longer a planeswalker. She's a 3/4 for 3 mana. 1 of each Jeskai color. At the beginning of your end step, you may discard your hand if you do draw cards equal to the number of spells you've cast this turn. Again, 3 mana, 3/4. Once you get Heck Bent and you don't have as many, you're just in top deck mode, then you just get to go nuts, especially if you have a bunch of these. We've seen a couple of these in Jeskai, the spells that also draw you cards. So you could start to go up to the number of up on the number of things you can cast. It does kind of reset each turn, but I don't know. There's also casting stuff from your graveyard. So if you've got Narset in your deck, try and get stuff that you can cast from your graveyard. So even if you discard it, got that going for it. Flamehold Grappler, also a rare here. 3/3 first strike for 3. When it enters, copy the next spell you cast this turn. When you cast it, you may choose new targets for the copy. And that's spell, so follow it up with a small creature or whatever, and you can double up on that for just that 1 red mana, deal 2. Now you're dealing 4. Instant speed, we got New Way Forward. It's 2 a blue, a red, and a white. Next time a source of your choice would deal damage to you this turn, prevent that damage When damage is prevented this way, New Way Forward deals that much damage to that source's controller and the big and. This is payoff for reading to the end of the card. And you draw that many cards. So those of you who like the, what is it? The Reflecting Palm, the Jujitsu type cards. For me, for my generation, reverse damage is what this is. And there are those big dragons. So, okay, you take a big hit from it, but then you've held up New Way Forward, and now instead of taking 5, they're losing 5, and you're drawing 5. Again, just similar to Jeskai Revelation. I think if you can get to the late game and pop one of these instants off, you're going to turn the game around. As long as you've stabilized. This is just absolutely backbreaking. Blue and a red and a white for the Saga, Rediscover the Way. Chapter 1 and 2, look at the top 3 cards of your library, put 1 into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. Not as excited about that. Chapter 3, when you cast a non-creature spell this turn, target creature you control gains double strike until end of turn. This one, I mean, it could be strong. Taking turn 3 off just to start setting up your hand. Maybe. I'm not going out of my way to Rediscover the Way. Personally, not to begin with. Not done with Jeskai. We still have the uncommons and the common. Our uncommon dragon is a 3/3 flying haste for 5. When it deals combat damage to a player, you gain a life and draw a card. I mean, that's pretty great that it has haste. You're almost always going to get the card back on this, right? Because if you can possibly incentivize an attack in the air from your opponent, and then boom, hit them for 3, draw that card, and gain that life. We got the Jeskai Brushmaster, and there's so many payoffs for having dragons. It's the other thing to keep in mind with all these dragons. They seem a bit overcosted, but you can get a lot of payoffs. For 1, a blue, a red, and a white, you get a 2/4 double strike Prowess. And, you know, it's a pretty big threat. If they don't have chump blockers, or if you can find a way to give it trample. Also at uncommon, the 2-brid here is Riverwheel Sweep. Sorcery, tap target creature, put 3 stun counters on it. And then you exile the top 2 cards of your library, choose one of them until end of your next turn, you may play that card. I like it. If it's the decks that care about counters, the stun counters may, in marginal cases, help. But, you know, just tapping down your opponent's big thing and getting it essentially pays for itself, right? Because you're going to probably be able to play and pay for one of the top 2 cards of your library. So I consider Riverwheel Sweep in pretty much any deck. Monastery Messenger is the common creature here with the 2-brids. It's a 2/3 flying vigilance. When it enters, put up to 1 target non-creature, non-land card from your graveyard on top of your library. You know, just put back Jeskai Revelation. Our New Way Forward, right? Watch your opponent just cry. Moving on to Sultai. Death begets life. Again, just a haymaker. 5, a black, a green, and a blue. So you're gonna have to work to cast it. But if you do, you destroy all creatures and enchantments, and you draw a card for each permanent destroyed this way. And then, you know, after your opponent has played out their board, even if you play out your board, this is the thing with board wipes, right? You try to make them non-symmetrical. But there's no way this one can be symmetrical because you're drawing cards. So you're coming out ahead. The Mythic Dragon is Taval, Arbiter of Virtue. It's 2, a black, a green, and a blue for a 6/6 flying lifelink. Spells you cast have Delve. And whenever you cast a spell, you lose life equal to its mana value. Okay, well, that makes Taval a little harder to use. You're going to need to be getting that lifelink. You know, and if you're hitting for 6 lifelink every turn, first of all, the game's not going to last long. Second of all, that gives you 6 life to play with in terms of casting mana value worth of spells. But like I say, there's not a drawback. That's traditionally Delve is traditionally a very powerful mechanic. If you don't know, each card you exile from your graveyard gives you 1 generic mana. Use it to cast Death Begets Life, maybe, and then you just wipe Tival. You're gonna take 8 damage. You wipe Tival, start over. Kotis the Fangkeeper is our legendary at rare. It's a 2/1 indestructible. When it deals combat damage to a player, you exile the top X cards of their library, where X is the amount of damage dealt. You can cast any number of spells with mana value X or less from among them without paying their mana costs. Again, great place to just stack all those counters, the green-black counter stuff. I like Kotis. Blocks anything on the ground, just a 2/1 indestructible. Really annoying card, really hard to deal with. Fangkeeper's Familiar is 1, a black, a green, a blue for a 3/3 flash. When it enters, you choose one. You can either gain 3 life and surveil 3, or destroy an enchantment, or counter target creature spell. So, surveil 3 is, especially in the late game, and gaining that life is going to be really good. I like that just to stabilize. Destroying an enchantment or countering a creature spell. It's basically a guaranteed 2-for-1 for 4 mana. I'm putting Fangkeeper's Familiar basically in any deck that will take it. Also have Lotus Light Dancers as 3/6 lifelink for 5. When it enters, you search your library for a black card, a green card, and a blue card. Put those cards into your graveyard, then shuffle. But as we've seen, there's so many renew and everything, it shouldn't be hard to have enough cards in your deck to make this a good payoff. I wish the power was a little more for Harmonize. Taking 3 off of a Harmonize is good, but you'd probably rather have a 3/6 lifelink to block or attack with. But anyways, I mean, it's all gravy. It's essentially with minimal deck building setup. You know, draw 3. Maybe those 3 are overcosted, but still, 5 mana, 3/6 lifelink, draw 3. You'll play it. Our saga is Awaken the Honored Dead. Costs a Sultai. Chapter 1, destroy target non-land permanent. Okay. Going in every Sultai deck. Chapter 2, mill 3 cards. Also just gravy. Chapter 3, you may discard a card. When you do, return target creature or land card from your graveyard to your hand. And this is one that's going to be so good to recur. We saw some ways to recur. I think we're about to see another one. I guess, was it the green and blue? The regrowth? Lie in Wait here is what I was thinking about. This is only a creature card. Returns from your graveyard to your hand. Karu Goalkeeper, we talked about this one. This is our dragon in these colors. 3/3 flyer, making treasures. And has a renewability. To put +1/+1 and flying counters. And don't sleep on the flying counter. That's always a good counter. Especially in the late game. Just put it on your giant creature and bash in. Lie in Wait, you're going to put this in every Sultai deck. It's brings a creature back from your graveyard to your hand and deals damage equal to the creature's power. So, it's a 2-for-1. Just a little 2-for-1 removal. Rakshasa's Bargain is the 2-brid instant here. In this case, look at the top 4 cards of your library. Put 2 of them into your hand and the rest into your graveyard. So, a little bit of graveyard filler. I think there's lots of ways to do it incidentally with creatures. I'm not as excited about Rakshasa's Bargain. We got the Gurmag Night Watch. When it enters, look at the top 3 cards of your library. 3/3. You may put one of those cards back on top of your library, put the rest into your graveyard. Again, if you want it, you want it. I was excited about that. Green, blue, red. Temur Harmonize. So, moving on to Temur. Our big splashy mythic that's not a dragon is Dragonback Assault. For 3, a green, a blue, and a red. Get an enchantment, and when it enters, deals 3 damage to each creature and each planeswalker. Keep in mind those toughness breaks, the 3 damage. That's not as exciting. I mean, what's really exciting is you're going to play this on turn 7 or whatever, when you have that 7th land that you can landfall, because the landfall ability is when a land you control enters, make a 4/4 red flippin' dragon creature token with flying. And maybe you held back an Evolving Wilds. Maybe you get 2 of those 4/4 dragons. Could happen. Could easily happen. Of course, the 4/4 dragons will not be enough to stop Ureni, the Song Unending. 8 mana, 5 and a teamer. 10/10 flying, protection from white and from black. Animar's friend. When Ureni enters, it deals X damage divided as you choose among any number of target creatures and or planeswalkers your opponents control, where X is the number of lands you control. Super stabilizer. Gonna require some serious ramping. But if you cast it and you get to deal X damage divided as you choose, and try to use all that land ramp that we looked at in the mana bases section of this video, and jump back if you jump past it, go back and look. There's a lot of it. You can set up Ureni and just wipe the board and be behind a 10/10, which, protection from white and from black, that's most of the decks. Essentially, only your Temur mirror is not going to be affected by that. Jeskai Dragonclaw is a 4/4 Vigilance Trample Ward 1. This is our legendary creature for Temur. At the beginning of combat on turn, if you've cast both a creature spell and a non-creature spell, you draw a card and put 2 +1/+1 counters on Jeskai. So, probably a bit of a build around. 4/4 Vigilance Trample Ward 1, though, even if you never trigger it, you're probably still happy. Then they got moving on to Songcraft. I speak. Songcrafter Mage. Casa Temur. This is one people are really hyped on. I did a poll on YouTube on this one, asking people whether they thought it was fun or competitive or busted or unplayable. Definitely went more towards the competitive side than the fun side, and some people do think it's busted. It's being called the next Snapcaster Mage. It's a 3/2 flash. When it enters, an instant or sorcery in your graveyard gains Harmonize into end of turn. Harmonize cost equal to its mana cost. So you do have to target something that has generic mana in the mana cost to really get the full value. I mean, itself can tap for 3 of that. But yeah, just good value. Just 2 for 1 anyway. We got Temur Battlecrier, Casa Temur. 4/3 Orc Ranger. During your turn, spells you cast cost 1 less to cast for each creature you control with power 4 or greater. There's just a little bit of power 4 or greater stuff. I guess it's similar to these mechanics where it's good. It's good to have big creatures anyway. The saga is called Roar of Endless Song for 2 a green, a blue, and a red. Chapters 1 and 2 making 5/5 green elephant creature tokens. So stop reading the card right there, just right there. 5 mana, 2 5/5 elephants. I love this card. I'm going to put this card in every Temur deck I can. And chapter 3, you get to double the power and toughness of each creature you control until end of turn. And we've seen green has some good trample creatures. Yeah, the Roar of Endless Song is very good. Let's look at the uncommons. More 5/5 green elephants, spoiler alert. Our dragon at uncommon is the Karakik dragon. Don't call your friends a Karakik. Could be offensive. 6/5 flying vigilance trample. This creature has hexproof if it hasn't dealt damage yet. I always like that ability. If it hasn't dealt damage yet, so indefinitely. Just play it, save it. They can't remove it. Hard to attack into. You get to decide when it loses hexproof. They don't. Yeah, I like Tarkir Dragon. Mammoth Bell OS like 5 mana, sorcery, makes a 5/5 elephant token. Then you tap that elephant to harmonize. It costs a Temur. You get another elephant. I'm looking out for these Temur decks with all the 5/5 elephants running around. Undercosted 5/5 elephant tokens. It looks pretty good. If you're a blue deck, get your bounce spells ready. Stop those tokens. We got Dragon Claw Strike. It's a sorcery. It's the 2-brid. You get to double the power and toughness of target creature you control until end of turn. Then it fights up to 1 target creature an opponent controls. Double up your elephant. It's a 10/10. Fights your opponent's big dragon, and then you attack with it. Ridiculous. Definitely playing that. And then the Temur Tawny back. 4/3 enters, draw a card, discard a card. Similar, I mean, even with the discard, that card filtering with a pretty decent sized body, although it is 3 toughness. Lots of decks might want this. They might be willing to pay 5 mana for it in a pinch. I think most of the time you will be paying 4 mana at most for these 2-brids. And I believe this is our last archetype of the official archetypes. Stick around for the hidden archetypes coming up next. Mardu Mobilize. Big Splashy Mythic is All Out Assault. Again, an enchantment here. 2, a red, a white, and a black. Creatures you control get +1/+1 and Death Touch. When it enters, if it's your main phase, there's an additional combat phase after this phase, followed by an additional main phase. And when you attack, untap each creature you control. It says when you attack this turn, I believe that means just you got pseudo vigilance essentially for all the combats here. You're gonna have a bunch of whatever survives the double combat is gonna be held back with +1/+1 and Death Touch. I have had trouble paying off these extra combat step cards that are a bit win more. I'm not super high on All Out Assault. I mean, it's going to be really good when it's good. But you know, you'll be happy if you open it. It's good in Commander. It'll have value at the very least. Their dragon or mythic dragon is Neriv, Heart of the Storm. 1, a red, a white, and a black. 4/5 flying. If a creature you control that entered this turn would deal damage, it deals twice that much damage instead. So it's a hasty creature build around. Again, you just be happy to play a 4/5 flying for 4. Don't have to worry about the commander build around elements of it. We saw some hasty stuff. There'll definitely be things. Remember, all the mobilized tokens enter that turn, so they're going to deal double damage. Going to double up your mobilizes. If they're 2/1s, they're going to hit for 4. Zurgo Thunder's Decree, costing a Mardu. The 2/4 Mobilize 2, speaking of Mobilize. And during your end step, warrior tokens you control have this token can't be sacrificed. It makes all your mobilized tokens just stick around. That's it's pretty good. NGL. I mean, you do have to have Zurgo stick around. But 2/4, again, that 4 toughness, I think that's going to be good. Put that on a rare for a reason. So rare coming up I'm very excited about. But first, let's talk about Inevitable Defeat. Also very good. 1, a red, a white, and a black. Instant speed. It can't be countered. Not a lot of counter spells in the format, really, honestly. There's like a 4 mana counter a non-creature is one of the options, and there's like a power sink, a blue and an X. And but anyways, that text is more for constructed. But what does it do? Exile target non-land permanent controller loses 3 life, you gain 3 life. So destroy anything plus a lightning helix to the face. You'll be happy to run that. But will you be as happy as the Siege Chicken, Mardu Siegebreaker? 1 a red, a white, and a black for 4/4 Death Touch Haste. There's that haste. When it enters, exile up to 1 other target creature you control until this creature leaves the battlefield. You can tuck a little ETB creature if you want. And you probably will want, because when the creature attacks, for each opponent, you create a tapped token that's a copy of the exile card. So you have that white creature that draws a card when it enters. There's some cards that have some nice ETBs. And also can attack pretty well. At the beginning of your end step, you sacrifice those. Or maybe you don't sacrifice them. If they're a warrior, warrior tokens can't be sacrificed. With Zurgo. Our saga is Thunder of Unity. Costs a straight up Mardu. Chapter 1. You draw 2 cards and you lose 2 life. Okay. Chapter 2. Whenever a creature you control enters this turn, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. And that's also Chapter 3. Kind of a mobilized build around, but very strong. We'll definitely close out some games. I don't know if I'm like super high picking it. Let's look at the uncommons here. Our dragon at uncommon is the Sonic Shrieker. 2 a red, a white, and a black for 4/4 flying. When it enters, it deals 2 damage to any target and you gain 2 life. And if a player is dealt damage this way, they discard a card. Oof. Definitely going to run a lot of those. Bone Cairn Butcher is a 4/4 with Mobilize 2. Costs 4. And attacking tokens you control have Death Touch. Great. We've seen how much Mobilize there is. I'm definitely excited to build a Mobilize deck. It looks like a lot of fun. I don't know how powerful it'll be, but it looks like a lot of fun. The 2-red uncommon is Defibrillating Current. Deals 4 damage to target creature or planeswalker. You gain 2 life. Are you happy to do that for 4? Yeah. Are you happy to do that for 5? Probably. 6? Why are you playing it for 6? you can come up with one of those 3 colors. Reigning Victor is the 2-red common, 3/3 Orc Warrior, mobilizes 1, and when it enters, target creature gets +1/+0 and gains Indestructible. I mean, in the aggressive decks, we've seen this effect be pretty good. I think you're not always going to hit that Mardu on curve, so it's not always going to be a 3/3 on turn 3. We could probably almost always play it on turn 4, as long as you're hitting your land drops. You have to have something to attack with. It's not hasty itself or anything. But it's good value. I like Reigning Victor. Okay. Now it's time for everybody's favorite part of these videos, where I talk about the hidden archetypes. Types that are not under the official list, but I mean, this is all but there's no hiding this one. First of all, they got Call the Spirit Dragons as a mythic, which costs Wooburg. Enchantment. Dragons you control have Indestructible. At the beginning of your upkeep, for each color, put a +1/+1 counter on a dragon you control of that color. If you put a +1/+1 counter on 5 dragons this way, you win the game. And I do think it's possible to do. You got to get 5 dragons on the battlefield. You're probably already winning once you have 5 indestructible dragons. But it's a fun build around. So whether or not you get called the Spirit Dragon, I think there's going to be a lot of shenanigans you can do just by being 5-color greed pile. Obviously, you're getting access to all these mythic dragons. If anybody happens to pass one of those, if they didn't take the mana base that could support it, you get hooked up. We saw there's also the big splashy 3-color spells and enchantments for each faction. You've got the Dragonstorm Forecaster in blue, which will let you search your library for Dragonstorm Globe, which is that 3-mana rock that's going to give dragons +1/+1 counters when they enter, but also taps for a mana of any color. So turn 1, Forecaster. Turn 2, tap it, go get the globe. Turn 3, play the globe. Turn 4, cast some 5-mana dragons. Just start going to town with dragons. Embermouth Sentinel is a 2/1 that will let you find a basic land. And if you have a dragon, the land's going to come in to play. There's just so many payoffs. I didn't put them all on this slide, but there's Dracogenesis. You just want to take dragons and not worry about casting them. Again, that's magical Christmas land. I wouldn't play Dracogenesis in limited necessarily. You can easily cast these dragons. You got stuff like Segu Wildling, which lets you search your library for a basic, put it into play. You got Dragon's Brood Relic, which is going to let you tap your Dragonstorm Forecaster, add mana of any color, and then eventually cash it in for 3 and a Wooburg. Create a 4/4 dragon creature token named Reliquary Dragon. It's all colors. It has flying lifelink, and when it enters, deals 3 damage to any target. Encroaching Dragonstorm. 4 mana, puts 2 basics into play tap, but then when you're playing your dragons, it's going to come back to hand. You can ramp some more. Rare, you got Maelstrom of the Spirit Dragon, which lets you cast the Omens and Dragons, and remember the Omens are all attached to dragons. So you can throw a ton of those in this deck, and then eventually, once you got enough mana, start casting the dragon side. And you can even sack the Maelstrom of the Spirit Dragon to go find your biggest, scariest dragon and put it into your hand. Breaching Dragonstorm, nice one. There's just you'll see there's stuff that gives dragons hexproof. Until I see different, I think 5-color just play all the best stuff. There's so much good fixing. Just get a lot of fixing and play only the most powerful cards and win the game. Now, I hinted at this before. Can you build a mill deck in this format? And I think the answer is yes. There's the harder way, which is chaining Watcher of the Wayside. So get a bunch of these. They'll probably be going around. It's a 3-mana 3/2. Enters, target player mills 2 cards, you gain 2 life. 2 life will help you stay in the game. And then you can bounce it back to your hand with Urani's Rebuff or the Sun Pearl Kirin, or you can trade off with it and bring it back with stuff like Lion Weight and Rite of Renewal. And just keep casting it and keep milling too. And if your deck has enough attrition, you don't even need to mill. You can just play a Jadecast Sentinel and just be stacking the cards from your graveyard back to your bottom of your library and attrition out the game. There's another fun way to win with it, with mill in this format, which is Veteran Ice Climber. 1/3 vigilance. It can't be blocked. When it attacks up to 1 target player mills cards equal to this creature's power. Well, I think you're always supposed to mill yourself 1 card. But what if you Rebellious Strike and you're hitting for 4, or you're putting all the +1/+1 counters on it, like with Synchronized Charge? You can even double up the +1/+1 counters with Sage of the Fang. All of a sudden, you have an unblockable, hitting for 10, milling for 10. Of course, you're probably going to win with damage if you do too much of that. But it is kind of fun. Maybe in the late game, they've milled themselves a bunch. You hit with the Veteran Ice Climber for 5 or something, and they can't close out the game fast enough before they run out of cards. Whirlwing Stormbrood can put 3 +1/+1 counters on a creature you control. Now, the real way to do it is get your Glacier Wood Siege, select Temur, and whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, target player mills 4 cards, and then just get a bunch of cheap, especially the blue card, that costs 1 blue and draws you a card, and you can replay. Just get a bunch of those with the Glacier Wood Siege. Every time you're milling them for 4. And in limited, it's not going to take that many. Less than 10, unless they're crazy. Put more than 40 cards in their deck builder. So that's the real way to do it, is to build around Glacier Wood Siege. But you can support with Veteran Ice Climber, Watcher of the Wayside, and or really, if you want to play on hard mode, try to win with those in the mill. Another deck I've theory crafted is the colorless deck. If you open an Ugin and you want to trigger, whenever you cast a colorless spell, exile up to 1 target permanent that's 1 or more colors. If you want to try to trigger Ugin as much as possible, You can put a bunch of these colorless commons in your deck. The Embermouth Sentinel, the Watcher of the Wayside, the Jadecast Sentinel, the Boulderborn Dragon. Dragonstorm Forecaster can search up the Boulderborn Dragon, or the thing we saw. You can put all those 2-brids in your deck and then just, cast them for 6. I think we've kind of seen that you don't want to cast them for 6. But on the other hand, you're going to have some colors, right? So you could throw it in, and especially if it's powerful enough, almost all the time you're going to have at least one of the colors. And you cast it for 5. No, would I target this? No. I think this is, late in the format. You want to do something fun. You get an Ugin. You want to go crazy with it because you pretty much win the game if you cast Ugin anyway. You try to do the colorless deck. Hidden Archetypes mono red aggro. I do think you can build mono red aggro. I wouldn't specifically target it, but the Fleeting Effigy mixed with the Shocking Sharpshooter and stuff that mobilizes and War Effort. You could definitely jank some people out with some cheap red creatures and little ping damage and just be faster than anybody else. It's theoretically possible. Okay, so not going into all, normally when I do these set breaks downs, I go into removal and all this stuff. I just run out of time getting this out on the Friday that the set is pre-releasing. But let me know in the comments, which faction are you going to pick? When you go to pre-release, you'll get a seeded pack. So you get 5 regular packs and you get 1 pack that is seeded with only cards from a specific faction, Mardu, Jeskai, Sultai, etc. So which one are you going to pick? And even if you're not going to pre-release, which of these looks the strongest to you? I think I'm going to do 5-color greed pile a lot. There's just too much fixing. I hope that I didn't lose everybody on the mana bases section of this video, because I really think it's going to be key to follow the mana bases and stuff. And you know what? Let's put the helmet back on here as I talk to you guys. If you haven't subscribed already, and you appreciate that I've done a lot of work, then please do subscribe. And leaving comments, even if you're subscribed, or hitting that thumbs up is also super helpful. But that is Tarkir Dragonstorm. I'm pumped for it. I'm going to a pre-release tomorrow. I hope if you go and you build a sweet deck, you'll send me a picture of it. This was meant to be a shorter video. But it's breaking down the set. I hope you found it useful. This has been ManaDad, reminding you Magic is a game so fun, even dads can salute with their horned helmets. Adios.